Hey, this is a Rupee review. It's where we review rupees. Ha, just kidding, you f***ing idiot. This is where we review video games. All right. Bad Justin Roiland impressions aside, this is Rupee Review, and today we are looking at Trover Saves the Universe, the latest virtual reality title from Justin Roiland's own Squanch Games. Trover Saves the Universe is the studio's second full-length game, following the very interesting Accounting Plus. The game puts you in control of the nameless character of the alien Chairorpian race, a species whose members are apparently confined to hovering chairs. From the outset of the game, we learn that the player character's beloved dogs have been stolen by a monstrous creature named Glorkon, who has stuffed the poor canines into his own empty eye sockets, which give him frightening and terrible powers over the universe for some unexplained reason. While lamenting over the loss of your stolen pets, you are introduced to a purple eye-hole monster named Trover, who has been assigned by his boss to aid you in recovering your pooches and bringing an end to Glorkon's plans to disrupt universal balance. Thanks to the abilities of strange creatures known as eye babies, the player character can control all of Trover's movements, everything from platforming feats, interacting with characters, to wielding his sword to defeat Glorkon's many clone minions, all while utilizing a controller that seems very reminiscent to one you, the player, would be likely to hold. Together, you and Trover travel to varied and oft-times bizarre planets, interact with otherworldly and usually annoying characters in search of a way to bring down Glorkon. But is the game any good? Let's talk about the good in Trover Saves the Universe. Accessibility and design. Trover Saves the Universe is a VR game, but it's somewhat unique in that you can play the entire game from start to finish without using a VR headset, which is how I recorded this video footage and why you're not vomiting while watching. While using a headset, the environment is vivid, bright, and immersive, a solid experience. But it was really refreshing knowing that if I didn't want to be bothered with the clunky helmet, or maybe started to suffer from fatigue or motion sickness, I could still continue to play the game where I left off. The game also has an option to play a censored version of the game. It seems to mainly just bleep out or obscure the F word, so I'm not sold on the effectiveness of it, but hey, the thought was there, I guess. I also like the design dynamic between Trover and the Chairorpian. The seated position of the Chairorpian and his useful controller are obviously designed to mimic the real-world player's position. The teleportation pads used to move the Chairorpian, in conjunction with the ability to control Trover separately, all work to limit the amount of actual movement being done by the player, which in turn limits the incongruence between sensory input and perception of motion that leads to VR sickness. As a person that seems particularly susceptible to motion sickness, a big yes to this level of thought and design. It does make the gameplay for a VR game seem less immersive and maybe a bit simplistic at times, but the game as a whole is really more about the next point on the good: the humor. Obviously, if you're a fan of the more bizarre, off-color aspects of Rick and Morty, you'll appreciate Trover. The dialogue of the entire game features much of Justin Roiland's now iconic, improvisational, lunatic rambling style. If you allow them, NPCs will continue to talk, and talk, and talk about all manner of things going on in their lives, just usually not about the information you need from them. I really like how the NPCs will interact with your character, deriding you for taking too long, hanging around, or maybe talking smack for some of your decision making. The NPCs are also very quick to comment on your doings or your not doings, which helps with the immersion aspect. Some of the interactions you have with characters and the things you overhear are a laugh riot. Now obviously if you don't like Rick and Morty, or are more of a fan of Dan Harmon's dark, nihilistic humor, maybe stay away. And as we'll discuss later, you can have too much of a good thing. Finally on the good, collect the Green Power Babies. Green Power Babies are the main collectible item in the game. There are 20 to 30 of them spread out across each of the game's multiple levels. Trover will encourage the character to find them, even hinting when one might be nearby, because he really wants them. Because, well, they get him high. Finding and reaching all the green power babies provides for the most amount of moderate to heavy thinking the game offers. Each power baby also comes with its own humorous name and backstory that are oftentimes extremely funny. Once you complete the game, you will be afforded a level select, which will make backtracking for any missing power babies easier. Finally, Trover promises to reward you for finding all of the green power babies in the game, and without going into spoiler territory, it is a hilarious part of the game. Few games are ever perfect, however, so let's look at the bed. Too much Roiland. Yes, the humor of Trover is good, but towards the end or during long play sessions, it can easily become tedious. Characters will talk endlessly about useless bullshit. It's fun and entertaining at first, but eventually you get tired of standing around and listening. But for fear of missing out on a funny line or reference, you'll feel obligated to let things play out. There also isn't a lot of depth to the jokes or humor. It's just Roiland's unfettered, crazy mind throughout. So as I said before, if you're a big Rick and Morty fan, you may find a lack of balance, a lack of restraint on the madness. Thankfully, the game is an appropriate length for the humor. At 4 to 5 hours, the incessant dialogue gets a bit grating at times, but not unbearable. Next on the bed, perspective. Whether while playing in VR or not, there are sections where the perspective makes gameplay needlessly difficult. Since there are areas where teleportation pods are far and few between, Trover can get pretty far away from the Chairopian, which in turn makes some of the platforming annoying or tedious. I mean, I spent a long time trying to get this goddamn power baby. Glitches. Trover could be more polished. I personally experienced an issue where an event didn't trigger correctly, leaving me trapped on a finished level with nothing to do. Quitting and reloading did nothing, and since I was on my first playthrough and had not yet unlocked the level select, I was forced to restart the entire game. I've also seen comments online from others who had similar experiences with events not triggering or power babies not spawning correctly. These issues seem to be exacerbated when leaving and returning to the game mid-level, so be wary. Finally, this f***ing trophy. Listen, I understand some of the more tedious trophies out there that test the resolve of the players, kill X amount of enemies, travel X amount of miles in-game, but Trover has one that is mind-numbingly awful. In the interplanetary ship you travel the universe with, there is a trash can, several balls of paper, and a basketball net. Clicking on the paper balls sends them into the air, and hopefully into the net and garbage can. You get 1 trophy for getting 1 basket, you get a second trophy for making 10 baskets, and finally, you get a trophy for 100 baskets. And let me tell you, this is an awful experience. It literally requires tapping on these pieces of paper thousands of times. It in no way feels satisfying to earn. Yeah, f*** off, Squanch Games. If you are a game developer, know this shit isn't funny. Don't do this. So with all that being said, it's time to give Trover Saves the Universe a score. Trover gets 6.5 power babies out of 10. The dialogue and story are both funny, immensely quirky, and interesting. However, they can easily get a little grating at times. The gameplay is also on the simple side, as well as being on the short side. However, as a VR game, it's a pretty solid experience and definitely does some thinking to make the experience easier on players. So that's our review. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Rupeethon is a charity Let's Play and gaming marathon organization. Check us out at Twitch or at rupeethon.org.